I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today, we're going to talk about brand management, principles and applications for an effective branding, which is from this book. Before I get you guys to introduce yourselves, it is just a fantastic book on branding. And the thing is that you, what I love about it is that it's not just a boring textbook. You've got case studies, you've got diagrams, you've got the thing that I thought was I love this bit was exercise questions, and part of the way through it you've got, I sit there, scholarly debate. And so it's a big book, but I mean, it's everything that you need to know about branding, but we're afraid to ask. You really don't need to ask. This is it. Anyway, now that I've said my piece about your great book, where can people find you?
Jay, please take over.
Yeah, so you can just Google search the names, and you can find us on our university website, LinkedIn, Google Scholar.
And you can connect with us also on any other social media as well as via, our publishers to get in touch with us.
Okay, good. So what was the inspiration behind the book? Not just the fact that the publisher contacted you and had been chasing you to write it for 3 years.
Yes. So yes, that's very aptly put. Publishers were chasing us for quite a few years before we agreed, because it's a big undertaking to write a book of this scope. But it's also born out of our own teaching experience in the subject area. So, almost 2 decades plus.
You're both lecturers, aren't you, in branding and marketing? Different universities, but
yeah, we are both professors in the same university.
Sorry, professors.
Yeah.
Yes, that's okay. At University of Southampton, professors of marketing. Both of us have the same title. But marketing, it's a huge area, and branding and brand management is a component of marketing, and one of the key components of marketing. So, I've taught it for several years, more than 2 decades. Paurav has as well. And what we felt was there was a lack of a balanced book which presents content in an engaging and interesting manner. But not only that, but also in a balanced way. The perspective is quite often influenced by the writer's own viewpoint or worldviews. And we were kind of always questioning that this is one person's opinion versus what is the research evidence or empirical evidence on a particular area. And then also what happens in actual real life.
Yeah.
Quite often there was a gap between that as well. And that led to seriously considering, because, as I said, book writing is not an easy task. So we did jump into it because of all those years of thinking and the need that we felt.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. I mean, it took quite a bit of time conceptualizing also in regards to how do we go about it, because we could see in the market, when we were talking to practitioners, like what you said, Tim, that it was not just that we wanted to present just one viewpoint, but we wanted to present the multitudes of viewpoints that exist with regard to branding. The term branding itself is multidimensional in many ways. And we wanted to capture all of those perspectives, both the academic perspective, the manager's perspective, and we wanted to give we wanted to create a book in the market that satisfies both sides of the debate. And I think that is what this book has been. It's been a culmination of almost 2 decades worth of teaching, research, interactions with people from all walks of life, including practitioners as well as consumers.
Yes, and I'm hearing what you're saying is that in effect it took you 2 decades to write it.
In some ways, yes, yeah.
So let's get to the fundamentals. What is a brand?
Sure. A brand in the most simplest way is some sort of a distinguishing feature associated with a product or a service or a concept or a person. So, Tim, you are a brand. And similarly, the book you're holding is a brand too. And we as people are different brands. So, in some ways, it's a distinguishing feature that you connect to something. However, it has so many different connotations because if Cristiano Ronaldo is a brand, as well as, if a University of Southampton is a brand, and if another university is also a brand, then how do you distinguishing them? And creating that distinction is really difficult because everyone gets exposed to so many brands today that if you do not create that distinction, you do not really remain a brand. So you could be a name, but becoming a brand requires far more effort than just being a name. And I think that is what our book provides you, kind of a roadmap to create that distinction.
And also, I think that's very well said, Paurav. Brand is also something that the businesses are built on and sustained. So without brand, businesses cannot move forward, cannot develop. So it's sort of the core, the soul of a business.
And I think that you've mentioned also the oldest brand.
Oh yes.
What's the oldest brand then?
Is it the school in Japan, or is it the hotel in Japan?
Yeah. So there is a hotel in Japan that has been running for almost 53 generations now. That is the oldest service brand, as we call it. But then there have been, you may not be, people may or may not be aware, but Stella Artois is almost an 800-year-old brand.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, there are a number of brands that have been in existence for a long time, but a lot of brands have also vanished. So that is how dynamic this world is, that, some brands that we used to love, or we saw it in every household globally, nowadays don't even exist or exist as a shadow of their past. Brands such as Kodak, for example. And I tell my students and executives whom I meet that, in an era where we take most amount of photographs, one of the world's largest photography brand died or diminished in its stature. And that is how dynamic this world is. So it's really an interesting area to understand. And like Jai said, it's the soul of an organization. And when an organization forgets about its soul, it obviously tends to diminish in its stature.
You also mentioned that the first logo was Stella Artois. And the first time that was used was 1366.
That's correct. Yeah. So these are some very long-standing brands, but not many brands have remained that way. Branding as a practice and as a science, I would say, has really come into prominence in the last 100 or so years, early 19th century. And what you tend to see is a number of brands such as Coca-Cola or Nestle and others that you start seeing from that point of time, and then they become global in nature.
So how as a business do I create a brand from scratch? What is it that I need to do? What are the essence of that?
Okay, start with a brand name, a logo, and get the book first and foremost.
Of course, buy the book.
And then start thinking about what is your brand. How do you see your brand going forward? Look at the competition, what others are doing in the category, and try to be not completely differentiated if possible. Then, if not possible, then at least be distinguished and create some marks that people can remember and put the brand in their consideration set for future purchase.
Absolutely so. And in that regard, again, within our book, we give a number of different frameworks, Tim, including there is a framework that we have provided called ALARN framework, which means ALARN. And, you have to think from ground up. That is your brand name or logo or slogan or the colors that you use are appealing. Are you really going to be able to protect this? There are legitimacy claims around it. Are you going to be able to make it happen digitally?
Yeah.
A lot of organizations, they create names and then realize that they are unable to buy the domain name.
Yes.
And then, you have suddenly a problem that you have a brand, but you do not have the domain name associated with it. And you have to start creating divergent identities. And you start losing yourself in the noise and the clutter that today's marketplace is. And so our frameworks actually help you create that roadmap of recognizability, meaningfulness, that you can take forward in building a brand.
Well, one of the things that you talk about in the book, in chapter 7, which is about brand communication, and you talk about the brand's function as a communication tool. Talk us through how you see a brand communicating.
Well, there are many different ways. I mean, as Paurav was saying, I see it as tactical as well as strategic. So, on a tactical level, what platforms the brand is using for communication, what platform. So, for some brands, TikTok is the right platform. Others, it's not appropriate.
Yep. So,
the choice of the platform, the choice of the media, radio, television, or different kind of media that's available now digitally. But strategically, what is the consistent message that the brand is giving out to its current buyers and potential buyers? So it could be embedded in a very simple, a slogan: "Just do it," or "Coke is it."
Yeah. No buts. It's got to be butter.
So probably the best beer in the world, best lager in the world. So it kind of captures the essence of the brand, what is being communicated as a jingle or a slogan. So many different ways. There are, sonic branding, there is, logo branding, there is social media branding. There are a number of ways to communicate to the wider world.
And with this digital world, particularly, Tim, brand communications, I must say, there is almost a democratization of brand communication. Once upon a time, TV or magazine or news media were the only source, just even 20, 30 years ago, for brands to communicate themselves. And it was very hard for small brands to actually get through because of resource constraints. But today's social media and other technologies, digital technologies, offer brands such a fantastic avenue. And in that way, they've democratized a market space for them to make a voice out of that clutter. And our book, in some ways, is an attempt to also help these small and medium entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, founders, and startups to build their brands so they can make their voice heard in this marketplace.
There is even a term for that, born global, because in the digital era, a brand it doesn't have to go through national, international, global. It's right from the start. An app maker, for example, can launch itself in many markets simultaneously.
Yes, I think that the barrier to entry for brands is probably pretty much zero.
Yes,
because you can create a logo on Canva for nothing and go out onto social media for nothing. And the only thing it costs is your time.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's this consistency of message. It's understanding what you want to say, how are you saying it, and how consistently you are saying it. It matters so much.
So you also talk about in chapter 8 about consumer brand relationships, and how to build brand trust and brand commitment. And clearly there's great examples like Nike and Louis Vuitton and Harley Davidson and Apple. What is it that do you think that sets those brands apart from maybe my local guttering company?
Jay, do you want to, or I can start with. Let me try and put it this way. So, first of all, these consumer brand relationships do not happen overnight.
Yeah.
And that means that both sides have to work at it, which means a brand has to create a promise that I will deliver something to you as a consumer, and then has to fulfill that over a period of time consistently.
Yeah.
And in doing so, there would be a trust built up. That trust built up because consumer is also investing into, not just by paying, but by using the brand, by choosing the brand. In all of that, consumer is actually putting effort. And so both sides are putting effort. And it's a kind of a bi-directional relationship. And then only relationships happen. But if you just assume that because I have put a brand here, so 100 years ago, that was the kind of message many brands had, that, Ford Model T, one of the most successful cars, in that competitive market, it said that it's available in any color till it's black. Available in only one color. And if you want to buy it, you buy it. But that would not be as much visible in today's market space. And so brands will have to build that relationship. Brand will have to demonstrate trust. Jay and I have published papers around brand commitment. And we show through this book also that this commitment is not one-dimensional. This commitment is also affective, which is feelings-based, continuance, which is economics, functional, transaction-based, and it is normative. It is societal norms-based. And if a brand understands this depth, then only they can actually build commitment. And these brands like Nike and Harley Davidson and others have actually achieved that by sometimes intuitively and sometimes actually going through it scientifically.
Yeah, in simple terms, brand is a promise at many different levels, consisting of many different dimensions. And that promise is strengthened by brand communication over a period of time. And that's what makes these brands endure.
Well, one of the things that you also go into, you talk about the brand, and then you talk about brand extension, brand alliance, and co-branding. I always heard the term brand stretch, but you actually use something. So that I thought it was funny that there was a picture that you've got of Colgate doing lasagna, which I thought was pretty disgusting. What? Tell us about brand extension.
Well, brand extension is the easiest way for a brand in a particular product category to expand its business. So, you're dealing with Colgate toothpaste, and then suddenly you think, okay, now I have achieved success in the toothpaste market. Let's do something else. So what could be Colgate mouthwash? So we are use the term fit with the brand. So the brand has an image. So the image is about something to do with the teeth or mouth. So there is a fit of the image if it is extending into mouthwash or mouth-related products. Whereas if it gets into food, there is a very low fit or a misfit, if you like. So the congruence or the fit is very important in terms of category. So extensions are successful because they leverage from the equity or the strength that the parent brand has already acquired over a period of time. So Kellogg's can keep on extending the brand in many different forms of breakfast cereals, bars, drinks, yogurt, a number of things, because Kellogg's is a strong parent brand. So it gets what we call attitude transfer to the extension, and they become established fairly quickly in the market. That's an extension of a brand. Then we have line extension,
Yes.
where we have different packaging and flavors, and so these are the terms used in branding: category extension, line extension, and brand extension.
Paurav, would you got anything to add to that? Or?
So again, a brand extension in some ways is so easy, and many brands fall for it because it's so easy. They assume that we already have an equity. So, like Colgate going into creating lasagna, but the same way, if Kellogg's tried to do toothpaste, thinking that if people have eaten cereals, they are going to brush their teeth before or after. So why not create a Kellogg's toothpaste? But you can imagine what will happen. So a lot of brands get into this mindset that we are so powerful that we can do anything under the sun. And there are so many examples of failures. There are far more examples of failures of brands, including luxury brands at top end to smaller brands to even large brands that have gone into something and failed on that extension.
We've had a comment from Aparna who says, "Hi, I'm a brand and trademark lawyer. I just wanted to add that your local business," I think that was when I was talking about my local guttering company, "is probably making the mistake of thinking they're dealing in the product and service they are providing rather than utilizing what they are selling as a concept, like clean gutters, which is like brands like Barbie, Apple, and HD do. They don't sell you just the product. They have gone beyond that." Thank you for that, Aparna.
Yeah. And Aparna, I would actually add into that today it is more about the experience. And for example, I say that, fashion companies are not selling just makeup or cosmetic companies are not just selling makeup. What they are selling actually is a hope. They are selling beauty. And I think when companies understand that, then they can actually create better brands.
Thank you so much for coming on today, Paurav and Jay, to talk about your book, Brand Management. The 20 minutes goes very, very quickly. It's an excellent book. I really enjoyed it. It is, if you want to know anything about branding, it's the book to read. I guess if I wanted to buy one, I can get one on Amazon.
Yes.
Or the Kogan Page website. And remind people where they can get hold of you.
So they can get in touch with us by just typing our name, either Paurav Shukla or Jaywant Singh. You can go there by visiting our website, like my personal website, pauravshukla.com, or on our university website, as well as on social media, but just searching for us. And there are a number of ways to get in touch with us. Please do.
Our email is also on the website.
We just had one final comment here from Dina, who says, "Thank you for this insightful talk. Can't wait to read the book."
Thank you.
So thank you, both of you, for coming on. Excellent book. And thank you for, I'm really honored to basically get the two of you on the podcast to actually talk about it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim, for